record now. Okay, right. Let's get started. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kijin Song, and I'm a postdoc researcher in the Urban Information Lab in the School of Architecture at UT Austin. Welcome to our lightning talk series on smart city research. This talk series is funded by the UT's Good System Project. So we invite the speakers from academia, industry, and the communities to share the research and the needs related to the smart cities. So if you are interested in the topic, please feel free to visit our website for our past talks and other activities at smartcity.tech.utexas.edu. Today, we are very excited to have Dr. Munindar Singh as our guest speaker. Dr. Munindar Singh is the SAS Institute Distinguished Professor in the Department of Computer Science at North Carolina State University, where he is also an alumni distinguished graduate professor. Munindar's research interests includes the artificial intelligence and multi-agent systems with a focus on ethics, accountability, trust, and governance from a sociotechnical system perspective. Current applications of interest includes the e-business, privacy, transportation, and humanitarian logistics. Dr. Singh is a fellow of IEEE, AAAI, and AAAS, and ACM, and a member of Academia Europaea. He has won the ACM SI-GAI Autonomous Agent Research Award and IEEE TCSVC Research and Innovation Awards and the IFAA MAS Influential Paper Awards. He also won the North Carolina State University's Outstanding Research Achievement Awards twice and was selected as an alumni distinguished graduate professor and is a member of NCSU's Research Leadership Academy. He also won the NCSU's Faculty Graduate Mentor Award. So today, he will talk about towards an ethical framework for smart cities. So without further ado, I'll pass the mic to Dr. Singh.
Hi, Kijin. Many thanks for your kind introduction. Hi, everyone. It's very nice. I'm very glad to be speaking at a UT Austin forum. I was a student at UT Austin many years ago. Did my PhD from computer sciences about 3 decades ago. So
I just want to add one thing. Dr. Singh is being very modest. He's a very, very famous student at UT Austin, not just a student at UT Austin. He studied under Ellen Emerson, who is a Turing Award winner.
Yeah, I was fortunate to have very, very great professors at UT Austin. Some of them have moved on, but you have a new crop now, people like Jin Feng and Peter Stone in computer science. I'm still in touch with. Yeah, so for this presentation, this is more of a speculative discussion kind of a topic. I've been thinking about smart cities for a while, and I've also been thinking about ethics and AI ethics and safety for a while. And I thought that there was a gap in our thinking about ethics in regards to smart cities, because a lot of the work that I found that talked about, there wasn't too much that talked about ethics to begin with in connection with smart cities. But when it did, it mainly talked about data privacy, like how is information that's gathered through various sensors going to be used, but in the sense of how it's going to be shared or retained and so on. And I thought, what would it take to go beyond it? So in this presentation, I have a few notes that I want to bring out, and then we can have a discussion as well. I think we have something. I was planning it to be a short presentation anyway, but feel free to interrupt if you see something you want to comment on. Okay, so with that remark, so I suppose everybody knows this much about smart cities and their motivations. We want to digitalize various urban and infrastructure and services, which would lead to reduced costs and better outcomes for residents, better environmental outcomes, improved quality of life, and so forth. So I don't want to dwell on it too much. Applications we've seen, things like transportation, smart grid, maybe even other things like healthcare, education, usage of space, waste management, street lighting, whatever you can think of, you can say it can be made better with smart cities. So the general, so this is where I begin to complain a bit. So the general thing with smart cities today is that their conception is that it's some traditional service like transportation or street lighting or waste management, and you make it better. But as a result, I think we are missing an opportunity to go beyond what's the current way of thinking. So you're making the existing things better, but not making radical improvements, which is what I'm more interested in. So there are, we have, when you talk about interaction, which to me is the most interesting part of all this. The interaction models are limited. So it's either residents talking to a government agency, like how do you, how do you, for example, I don't know, get real estate evaluations, or there may be something about using public resources, like how do you use a park or a road or whatever. But otherwise, the interactions are not described in enough detail. And a lot of the discussion when it comes up, when it talks about motivations, it talks about economic incentives as opposed to other kinds of incentives that there might be. So one of the things I've been doing for the past decade or a little more than a decade is trying to build a model of a socio-technical system. And of course, the phrase socio-technical system is used a lot by sociologists or people in the social sciences. They generally mean it in a more I would say, amorphous sort of a way, in that they might talk about how some technology, such as email, or a technology such as autonomous vehicles, or technology at that level of description, will affect social interactions, right? So the technology comes into play, and organizations change, or our life changes. In my conception, in contrast, I'm interested in talking about socio-technical systems, but from a standpoint of a computational model. So if you can imagine that there are many people who form the social fabric of our system, those many people are assisted by computers, or think of them as intelligent agents, AI agents, and it's how these interactions take place between them that realizes the social technical system, and the computational aspects of how those agents are regulated and how those interactions respect the needs of the stakeholders, the humans, is what's interesting. So with that motivation, um, in this recent work, I thought that so my colleague, Pradeep Murukanaya, who's a faculty member at the university, the Technical University of Delft in Netherlands. So we thought that we would look for some interesting notion of what could be an ethical framework. So a lot of the time when you see ethical frameworks in philosophy, there'd be things like deontological notions, like Immanuel Kant's work, or there would be like utilitarianism, from Jeremy Bentham. But we thought that might be easier to think, or more natural to think in terms of something that's not exactly a philosophical framework, but a psychological framework. So something that describes how people interact with each other, or what motivates people in their sort of moral thinking. And to this end, so we find this notion called or this theory called moral foundations theory. It was largely invented by Jonathan Haidt. He's an extremely famous social psychologist who does work on ethics and morality, and his colleagues. So in this theory, what they proposed was, and so what Jonathan Haidt has been doing before for maybe a few decades, was studying various societies. So he talked about societies like in the West, also under, like in traditional Indian, like religious theories, like in Hinduism and Buddhism, maybe notions such as in China, or notions like in the Middle East. So he studied a lot of these societies as they arise, and he discovered that there are some interesting foundations that describe moral judgment. So in this, and this is partly a moving target in that he doesn't say that this is like the final list, but here are 6 that come up. So there's a framework which is, or there's a foundation which is ranges from care to harm. So here the moral thing is that you want to protect somebody who's vulnerable, and especially one's skin. That means maybe like you protect your children, like that. Fairness in cheating, that something to make sure that fairness is a good thing, and we have a moral urge for fairness. We have a moral urge for loyalty, like loyalty to one social group. We also have a moral urge, it seems, for authority, to respect hierarchies, to talk about obedience, like you should do something because the leader says so. You should do something because the religious leader says so. Like that. There's a notion of sanctity, which is, Jonathan Hay talks about how in various religious groups people will wash their hands before performing any religious functions. So that's an example of sanctity, that you're trying to purify yourself before you do something important. And this also pertains to food. Like even today we wash our hands before sitting down to dinner, things like that. So again, sanctity is a good thing, and the opposite of that is disgust towards contamination. And then liberty, that we want to resist domination, we want to have some autonomy, we want to not be oppressed. So if you take these kinds of these 6 categories of motivations or moral urges that people have, we can take them and stick them into a smart cities framework. So we can say, on the left part of this, we have a smart city being viewed as a socio-technical system. So we can think of in the upper tier, this is above the line is the social tier. So this is the people who live in the city, the government agencies, the business. We can think of all of them as principals, like their main social entities that are interacting with each other. Underneath, in the technical tier, we have the data resources, which would be, presumably there's a physical layer underneath, with sensors and so on. So there's the data, and then there are the public services or resources that you're using. And how the resources produce or consume the data, the humans and the agencies and so on, they also produce and consume the data, and they use these resources. So this is a schematic of a smart city viewed in the socio-technical system terms, where there's a social layer and a technical layer, the tiers coming together. Now, what we want to talk about is these interactions that take place. And if you can think of an ethical framework, we can think of the interactions between principles with respect to these various moral foundations that I just introduced. And this is essentially the heart of what I want to propose. I have some examples worked out, which I'll. This picture is a bit. This table is a bit sparse, so I'll talk through it. So let's think of we think of some examples here. So let's think of this one first. So how residents talk to some agencies, a government agency. So let's say we're talking about how people deal with a government agency that might have information about them. So if you use the park, the government agency who runs the park has some information about you. If you use the city buses, the agency that operates the buses knows when you boarded the bus, when you got off. The 2 agencies can come together. They know which bus you took. So how long you were at the park. When did you go to the park? When did you take a bus out of the park? So in a case like that, we can think of the concern would be some sort of consent with respect to your information. How that information is being sold or whatever. And here maybe the concern would be that maybe you don't want. So I'm just thinking of some example concern. Don't think of it as the only concern. Some example concern. And given that we have concerns of this type in this scenario, it would seem to me that these 3-dimension foundations are the most prominent, right? So there's the care versus harm, that maybe you want to make sure your kids, if they take a bus, to go to the park or do something, you want to protect them, that their information is not misused. At the same time, you want to respect the authority that runs the park and runs the transportation system, and all, but yet at the same time, you also don't want them to be controlling you too much, right? So if you're thinking of a smart city which supports buses and park being made smart and unified in some ways, then from the ethical considerations, they would pertain to these 3 foundations. Similarly, you can think about residents using public resources, of various kinds. And here again, in this case, you might be thinking about the resource itself, the quality of the resource. So here, the sanctity or the purity of the resource might matter. Like if you're using water, you want to make sure it's pure. If you're using a park, viewed as a resource, you want to make sure that it's not been fouled up. And there may be some fairness involved, like you want to make sure that everybody gets water, without lead, or everybody gets to use a park when without one person being able to damage it for other people. And similarly, we can think of residents to residents, like the information. Maybe the smart city allows or enables new affordances in the sense of makes possible new interactions where residents can use information from other residents. And here again, you want to make sure that the residents are, you're protected, or your family is protected, nobody's cheating, but also there's some sort of a loyalty to the group, that the group of people who are coming together and using this information, they're bringing they're taking care of the social group. There would be interaction between residents and businesses. Maybe in the sense that maybe like businesses may use information from a smart city to offer services. And in the short paper that I had behind this, the example we used was that let's say there's a coffee shop outside the park gate, and the coffee shop can access information about the buses in the city, and from that they know when bus number 11 is coming, and if bus number 11 is coming and it has 50 people on board, then the coffee shop can start making coffee ahead of time, right? They know 50 people are coming and many of them will come into the coffee shop. So that's an example of a business taking advantage of a smart city service to help the residents. But if it's doing that, then it opens the possibility of some bad kind of behavior. Like let's say there's a bus number 11 coming and a bus number 12 coming, and the bus number 12 comes from a richer area, 11 comes from a poor area. Then suddenly the city, the business, the coffee shop that uses that information may figure that, oh, people coming from the rich area, so let me just have like the expensive drinks. I'll have matcha coffee ready, but I'll not have a flat white or something. So they could start playing games where they can use the city's information to be unfair to the residents of the city, right? Just because of the knowledge that the smart services provide can be misused. And so in that case, we can say maybe that's what we should be worried about. So when you're designing our socio-technical system, we should either somehow make sure that doesn't happen. I think that's actually unlikely that we can make sure that it won't happen, but we can at least impose various norms. We can impose various or identify various values such as this. Like we can say this misuse is a bad thing, and so there are norms which go against it. Maybe businesses which use city services, like information about who's on the buses and so on, they are under some normative pressure, maybe legal or semi-legal constraint about how they are, how about the people they are serving. So they had to maybe show that they are serving, sort of choosing the demographics fairly of the people they're serving. And conversely, now the last one is, when the businesses talk to government agencies, again, businesses can try to be clever. They can try to manipulate, government agencies. For example, if it's a large business, they can force the government agencies in various ways. Like if it's say a Walmart as a shopping center, it's a large destination. So many buses will go close to the Walmart, and they can start to influence how the bus services run. And in that case, maybe there's some concern that we might have that, the buses are optimized for the Walmart and not for the people who don't want to go to Walmart or want to go somewhere else. So again, there's a problem there that's possible that lurks under the smart city. So that's what I had. So let me stop here and see how you guys react to these preliminary thoughts.
Thank you so much, Dr. Singh. It was a fascinating talk. And we'll wait to see if there is any questions from the audience. Does anyone have a question?
I have a quick question. Dr. Singh. So this framework, have you tested in any model, like a multi-agent model, around any simulation?
Not yet. I've been contacted by people who wanted to do something like that, but not yet. So this is fairly speculative in that sense.
Okay.
The other, I mean, there is a part of it. So Pradeep, my co-author, he's done work um, on extracting these things, right? So these model foundations, you can extract them from language. Like when there are I think in the Netherlands they worry a lot about I think it's water usage and so on. So there are discussions about water usage or about the placement of windmills. I think is one of the challenges they have. So they have public discussions about windmill locations, and they are mining the text data there for the model foundations, for the values that come into play. So there is that's the computational part of it that comes out.
We did some similar work about EV charging station allocation. One of my PhD student, June, did some work trying to understand how the different agents will behave to the different allocation criteria within Austin area. But this is a very inspiring for because this can be applied to different utilities like a windmill or charging station or any public infrastructure.
Yeah, I think, and I think one way to think of it is that it's a framework for designing a socio-technical system. So when you design a socio-technical system, involving, which will be some component of a smart city, then you can check that these various for the stakeholders involved, these various dimensions, these various foundations are addressed in some way, that you will not cause problems for them, and depending on the particular scenario. Like in the case of the windmill, maybe some loyalty and betrayal may not be a factor, but maybe there's some concern about care and harm, or maybe there's something about the degradation of the environment. If you thought that the windmills make the environment look bad or something, right? Or they kill birds or whatever. So you could apply, depending on the particular case, you choose which of these apply, and then somehow develop norms to make sure that they are protected.
Yes, agree. We'll yield the floor to KG for other questions.
Yeah.
Does anyone have other questions? One of our audience made the comments that thank you for touching up on the interesting aspects. And Yefu said, thank you for the presentation, Prof. Singh. One question is in my mind is, do you expect us to find the disparities in performances of launching this ethical framework? For instance, the way or the systems could be different across cases.
I didn't fully, I'm not able to see the chat. So yeah, so I think, so the question, let me see if I can read the question. Yeah, I see the chat now. Do you expect to find disparities in performance of launching? Yeah, if I understand you correctly, so the different foundations would have different applicability in different scenarios and to different people. Like if you are talking about say a park, maybe care and harm, which children are going to use. So care and harm would be really important there. You want to keep the park clean, so sanctity and degradation, that would be an important one there. If you have some smart, let's say about Jung Singh mentioned EV charging, maybe fairness is important there, in terms of equal access to people for charging charging their car. So everybody gets equal access to them. There could be others like a smart city which does some, say, allocates taxation to people, you know, depending, and then in that case, maybe liberty is more important, because you could say you want, and fairness would be important. You want to make sure that everybody, you don't tax people sort of differently based on something. So in a way, it's just a way of thinking about your early stage requirements. You know, if you're thinking of it as a systems engineer, so it's like, it's a way to frame your early stage requirements so that you can focus on those in consultation with your stakeholders and so forth.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I think it's already the time to wrap up. So I want to say thank you, Dr. Singh, for your wonderful talk today. And we will post your videos on our website soon. And for everyone, if you are interested in the future talk, you are very welcome to visit our website at smart.tech.utexas.edu to see our past recordings and any information for future talk as well. So yeah, I want to stop here. So if you have any questions to the Dr. Singh, yeah, please feel free to connect me or Dr. Singh as well. So thank you everyone for joining this talk today, and I hope you all have a wonderful week.
Yeah, thank you
you.
for the opportunity, and please feel free to write to me if you have. It's still very early stage, and I hope we can, you know, we can all work together to make these things, make sure ethics is taken into account when we build out smart cities. All right.
Yeah.
See you.
So
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you so much.